My name is Camille Morgan. I'm 26 years old, and at my graduation, my family chose a dog over me. I stood alone in the rain with a valedictorian medal no one asked about, while they took photos with Zeus, his bandana perfectly straight, his smile front and center. No one saved me a seat. No one said, "We're proud of you." They handed me a Hallmark card and posed for one more picture, without me. If you've ever poured your whole heart into being seen, only to be cropped out of your own moment, stick around, because what came next wasn't revenge. It was clarity. If this kind of story resonates with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that matter. Let's begin. All she asked for was a photo with her family. They said Zeus wouldn't sit still. The spring rain was soft but steady, turning the grass of Westfield High's football field into a muted green blur. The last of the folding chairs squeaked as students and parents filtered out, their cheers fading into the low hum of car engines and rustling umbrellas. Camille stood near the end zone, cap in hand, her navy gown clinging slightly to her legs. Her hair, once curled carefully that morning, had surrendered to the humidity hours ago. She scanned the crowd. No sign of her family. Her classmates were already wrapped in embraces, iPhones out, cheeks pressed together in perfect lighting. Camille checked her phone. 2 unread messages from Dad. "Hey, sorry." Zeus was freaking out. "We had to walk him around." "We're by the snack stand. Come meet us?" She walked past the cluster of vendors packing up, her metal brushing against her collarbone. It was a simple thing. Gold-painted plastic, valedictorian, etched in faux script. She hadn't worn it for attention. Just a small reminder that she had done something worth noticing. Near the snack stand, she spotted them. Her parents, Brielle, Zeus. The golden retriever sat upright on his hind legs as Douglas snapped a photo. Elaine crouched beside him, fixing the dog's bandana. Brielle beamed. Camille slowed her steps. From where she stood, she could hear them laughing, Brielle clapping, Zeus barking once in reply. "Did you get it?" Brielle asked, her voice sugary and proud. "Perfect," Douglas said, showing her the screen. "He looks like he's smiling." Camille took a step forward, raising a hand. Elaine turned slightly. "Oh, Camille, you made it. Sorry, Zeus was restless during the ceremony. We didn't want him getting overwhelmed." "He could have stayed in the car," Camille replied, trying to smile. "Oh no, honey," Elaine said, adjusting her umbrella. "It's too warm. We didn't want him to overheat." She reached into her purse. "Here's your card. We put a little something inside." Camille took it. A generic Hallmark envelope. Her name printed in blue pen, Brielle's handwriting. "Thanks." Elaine turned back toward Brielle. "Okay, let's get one more with just the 3 of us and Zeus. Quick before it starts pouring." And they did, without her. The lens of Douglas's camera glinted as he framed the shot. Brielle kissed Zeus on the nose. Elaine laughed, her voice ringing out across the parking lot. Camille stood off to the side, invisible, holding the unopened card like it was burning her fingers. No one asked her to join. No one even turned. By the time they looked again, she was already walking away. The soft click of her sandals against wet concrete was the only sound in her ears. Behind the gym, she stopped beneath the overhang, out of view. She pulled the metal over her head and stared at it for a moment, then snapped it in half. The sound, plastic cracking, was quieter than she expected. She didn't cry. She just sat, letting the rain mist her knees, watching the gold edges glint under the fluorescence of the gym exit sign. From the other side of the wall, their voices drifted. "Brielle's really got that spark, huh?" Douglas said. Elaine murmured in agreement. "She's got presence. That's the kind of future we need to invest in." Camille leaned her head back against the brick wall. The card in her lap felt heavier now. She opened it. Inside, a $100 bill and a message. "Proud of you. Love, Mom and Dad." Her name wasn't even spelled right. She took a matchbook from her pocket. She always carried one. For candles, for emergencies, for moments like this. Back at home, in her room, Camille sat at her desk. Her acceptance letter to NYU rested next to a blank thank you card she'd never had a reason to send. She picked up the letter, read it one last time, then struck the match. The edges curled, turned to black lace. She let it burn completely before dropping the ashes into a ceramic mug. She didn't need their investment. She just needed to stop waiting for them to notice. Camille stared at the fading embers. Then she opened her laptop and deleted the group photo folder she had created a week earlier. Its title, Graduation Day, Family. She renamed the empty folder, Beginning. And she never looked back. 8 years later, I was about to be named vice president. My parents still thought I made coffee for the marketing team. The corner office smelled faintly of bergamot and printer ink. Camille always kept the diffuser running low, subtle. The view was what people commented on most. Manhattan's skyline spread out like a promise behind the glass. She rarely looked at it. Instead, she was finishing a pitch deck. The final slide read, "Global storytelling begins here." Bold, simple. Heron Jasmine popped her head in. 10 minutes, you good? Camille nodded. Everything's loaded. How's the turnout? Standing room only. Lauren's glowing. Camille stood, smoothing her navy pantsuit. Not the most expensive, but sharp. Timeless. She had polished the shoes herself the night before. Old habit. Outside the conference room, a dozen staff buzzed around the catering table, rearranging crystal water bottles and mini quiches. The placard near the door read, Q4 Global Strategy, Internal Marketing Leadership Session. Presented by Camille Morgan, VP Designate. Except none of her family would see it. They were in Soho that afternoon. For Zeus. Brielle had flown in for an obedience workshop, some canine enrichment weekend that cost more than Camille's NYU housing deposit. Their mom had texted that morning. Wish we could come see your office, but Zeus has his spa massage at 3. You know how cranky he gets. Camille had stared at the message, thumbs hovering, then typed, "No worries. Break a paw." She deleted it, replied with a heart emoji. An hour later, the lights dimmed. Lauren Caldwell stood at the podium, microphone clipped, hair pulled into its signature power twist. Most of you know Camille Morgan as our quiet storm. She began, smiling. But this year, that storm has brought us record retention, 5 successful launches, and a global brand realignment. It's long overdue, but official. She'll be leading our 2024 campaign across all markets. Applause burst around the room. Camille stepped forward, chin up, heart steady. She spoke for 12 minutes, every word rehearsed, every chart tested. When it ended, the applause returned, but her eyes flicked toward the back, 6 empty chairs she had reserved just in case. She left the reception early, waving off congratulations. Jasmine called after her, "You sure you don't want to grab drinks later?" "I've got dinner plans," Camille lied. She walked for blocks, past diners, couples, dog walkers. The city lights blurred slightly as the wind picked up. Her heels clicked on the pavement, echoing off buildings like an applause no one stayed to hear. She ended up near Bryant Park, a tiny Italian place, dimly lit, where waiters wore suspenders and menus came on clipboards. She sat alone in a corner booth, ordered tagliatelle and a glass of red. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. When the food arrived, she wasn't hungry. She scrolled absent-mindedly through Instagram, fingers swiping with reflex more than interest, until the screen froze on a familiar handle. At Brielle.Morgan XO News Story, a mirror selfie. Captioned, "My sister?" She's still wearing her shoes from 2017. Camille stared at the screen. She recognized the photo background. It was the hallway outside her own office. Brielle must have snapped it during the 5 minutes they dropped by last year. She hadn't even known her sister kept that photo. The shoes were classic black pumps. Scuffed near the heel, but still solid. She had worn them through 3 promotions, 4 client showdowns, and 1 moment on stage. Camille locked the phone, set its screen down. She took 1 bite of pasta, then pushed the plate away. The sauce tasted like nothing. Outside, New York pulsed like it always did. Alive, indifferent, and full of people who wouldn't notice if you vanished. She paid the check, left a generous tip, and walked out into the noise. A gust of wind lifted the hem of her coat. Camille didn't chase it. I woke up to an empty hospital room. No flowers, no family. Just a nurse saying, "You're lucky to be alive." The ceiling above her was the color of paper, off-white and buzzing faintly with a fluorescent flicker that gave everything a washed-out sheen. Camille's lips were dry. Her tongue was thick. It took her a full minute to realize the beeping came from a machine at her side, and that the warmth near her elbow was a cotton blanket, not a hand. Snow drifted lazily outside the narrow window. Christmas lights blinked from a rooftop across the street. Tiny, distant, and meant for someone else. She blinked again, turned her head, painfully, to the door. No balloons, no familiar coat draped on a chair, no smell of her mother's vanilla lotion. Just silence. Footsteps approached, crisp and light. A nurse with kind eyes stepped in, her badge tilted slightly. Natalie Quinn, RN. "Oh, Camille, you're awake." Natalie smiled gently. "Don't try to talk yet. You've been out for a while." Camille tried anyway. Her throat caught. She gave up. "Your vitals are strong," Natalie continued, checking a monitor. "You were in a bad accident. Car flipped off the turnpike. Lucky it didn't catch fire." Camille blinked slowly. Her body ached, deep and distant, like a bruise on her soul. "Is anyone?" she managed to rasp. "Here?" Natalie hesitated. "No one's been in today." A pause. "Actually, they haven't come since the first night." Camille's fingers twitched. "Parents?" she forced out. The nurse hesitated again, longer this time. "They called briefly, asked about the car's condition, said they couldn't come because Brielle had an award ceremony that night, and something about Zeus not being allowed in hospitals." Camille turned her face to the window. The ache behind her eyes wasn't pain. It was absence. Natalie adjusted the IV. "You're healing well, but I think the harder part is something else." A beat passed. "They sent this." Natalie reached into her bag. A worn envelope. Old-style script on the front. Camille Morgan. Postmarked from 3 weeks ago. "We found it in the hospital mailroom. Got forwarded here from your old address. From someone named Helen?" Camille's throat caught. Grandma Helen. She hadn't seen her since the Christmas before college. Their last conversation had been brief. A phone call filled with static and well wishes. Her parents had always called Helen old-fashioned, but Camille remembered her as warm. Sharp as ever. The only person who sent handwritten letters anymore. Natalie placed the envelope on the table beside the bed. "She passed in November, I'm afraid. But it seems she had something to say to you." Camille reached for it. Her hands trembled. The paper felt like it might crumble under her fingers. She slid her thumb beneath the flap and unfolded the single sheet inside. The first line read, "If you're reading this, it means you survived." Her breath hitched. She read it again. The sterile air around her thickened. The snow outside had started to fall harder now, coating the fire escapes and black iron fences in silence. Camille didn't cry. She didn't speak. But something inside her shifted, like a door swinging shut behind her, and another creaking open in the distance. "If they chose a dog over me, I can choose a future without them." The air in the Airbnb smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and wood smoke. Light filtered through gauzy curtains, soft and blue with snow reflection. Camille sat at the small kitchen table, wrapped in a fleece blanket that wasn't hers. Nothing in this room was, really, but it was quiet, clean, and for the first time in weeks, hers alone. The envelope lay open beside a steaming mug of tea. The letter inside was unfolded, edges worn from rereading. "If you're reading this, it means you survived," her grandmother had written. "I always knew you would. Your strength is not loud. It's layered. An invisible strength lasts longest." Camille exhaled, fingers curled around the ceramic mug. I watched them sideline you even as a child. You were never the favorite, but you were always the constant. The one who listened, the one who stayed kind. If they forget you, it's because they never saw clearly to begin with. A tear slipped down Camille's cheek before she could stop it. Not from pain, but from the strange comfort of being seen by someone who wasn't even alive anymore. You have a legacy, Camille. You don't have to carry theirs. Her phone buzzed. Jasmine's name lit up the screen. She answered. Hey. Hey, you, Jasmine said, her voice warm. I saw the hospital release notice. You made it out in one piece, huh? Mostly, Camille murmured, still working on the rest. Jasmine hesitated. You don't have to talk about it, but if you want a distraction, we could use some help up here. Freelance, just content polish for a campaign pitch. Low pressure, short term. In Boston? Yeah, you'd like the team. And it's not Manhattan. Camille managed to smile. That's a selling point now? Jasmine's voice softened. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, Camille. But if you want a fresh start, I've got one with your name on it. Camille stared out the window. Snow was falling steadily now, blanketing the fire escape. She reached for a leather-bound notebook from her bag and opened it to a clean page. She wrote in slow, deliberate strokes. 1. End all financial ties. 2. Start therapy. 3. Build something of my own. Then underlined. No explanations. No guilt. The pen hovered for a moment before she added a 4th line in smaller handwriting. 4. Keep promises to myself. Even small ones. She closed the notebook gently. They don't get to rewrite me anymore, she said aloud. Her voice didn't tremble this time. A knock interrupted the silence. 3 soft raps on the door. Camille opened it to find Ella Fisher, the landlady, bundled in a maroon scarf, cheeks pink from the cold. She held a small cardboard box sealed with old packing tape and wrapped in string. This came by courier, Ella said. The man said it was left in storage at a nursing home in Newark, addressed to you, from your grandmother. Camille's stomach flipped. She took the box with both hands. Thank you, she whispered. Ella's eyes crinkled kindly. She must have loved you deeply. Not many people think that far ahead. As the door clicked shut, Camille placed the box on the table. The label was handwritten. Camille Morgan, for January 3rd. She stared at it for a moment, then reached for her phone and booked her first therapy session. I didn't come back to hurt them. I came back to remind myself that I survived them. The street looked smaller than she remembered. Westfield hadn't changed much. Same brick sidewalks, same sagging mailbox at the corner, same oak tree scratching its limbs against the sky. But the house had shrunk. Or maybe she had simply outgrown it. Camille stood across the street for a moment, coat zipped to her chin, the locket warm against her chest. In her coat pocket, the envelope waited, sealed in brittle paper with her grandmother's handwriting. You'll know when it's time. Today was January 3rd. She crossed the street. The door was unlocked, of course. This neighborhood never bothered with keys. Laughter filtered from the kitchen, squeals, champagne corks, the click of manicured nails on wine glasses. Brielle's voice rang loudest. Camille stepped inside. No one looked up. The scent of vanilla cake mixed with dog treats. Silver balloons hung from the ceiling. Happy birthday, Brielle. And beneath it, in smaller letters, 2 years of Zeus. Someone had even put a little party hat on the dog. Camille moved like a ghost. Unseen, unheard. The hallway was lined with photos. Camille found her face in only 2 of them. In one, she had been cropped at the shoulder. In the other, her eyes were half-closed mid-blink, forgotten in the blur. She entered the dining room and paused at the edge. Her mother was telling a story, something about Brielle's recent podcast appearance. Douglas leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of Pinot. Zeus barked once, and everyone laughed like he'd cracked a joke. Then her father said, Camille? I think she's still doing something with emails, like marketing support or whatever. Elaine added, she's always had a small personality. Some people just aren't made for big rooms. Camille stepped fully into the doorway. The locket caught the chandelier's light. No one noticed. Until Rachel Lane, the neighbor, turned and gasped. Camille? The room fell still. Camille met their eyes one by one. Not angry, not broken, just finished. You all made your choices, she said quietly. I just made mine. She reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope, walked to the dining table, placed it beside the untouched cake. Then, slowly, she broke the seal and opened the flap. Inside was a notarized document, a property deed transfer, a small home on the edge of Cape Cod, once her grandmother's, now hers alone. Elaine stared. What is that? Camille said nothing. She didn't need to. Brielle tilted her head. Wait, Grandma's place? Douglas stood, voice shaky. She left that to you? Camille didn't answer. She reached into her coat one last time and withdrew an old photograph. The family at Camille's high school graduation. Except in this version, her own image had been carefully cut out. She placed it on the cake table beside a plate of untouched slices. Then she turned and walked out. Past the hallway, past the shrinking house, into the cold that no longer bit like it used to. She didn't stay for cake. They still live in the same house, but I built something next to it, with walls they can't enter. Morning light spilled through the arched windows of the villa, painting soft gold onto the oak floors. The space was warm, silent, and scented faintly with sea salt and rosemary. Camille stood barefoot in the living room, a mug of coffee cradled in her hands. Outside, the ocean hummed against the cliffs, a steady rhythm she had come to rely on. She had just finished hanging the last frame, a black and white photo of her grandmother standing beside the Cape Cod porch, wind in her hair, one hand shielding her eyes from the sun. It belonged here. So did Camille. The renovation had taken 6 weeks. New flooring, fresh paint, a library nook. Everything was soft, intentional. No loud voices, no porcelain figurines or dog treats on the counter. Just space. Space to be. Ella Fisher sat at the kitchen island, flipping through a local design magazine. This place breathes, she said. You built peace into the walls. Camille smiled. That was the point. A faint vibration on the kitchen counter. Her phone. A message preview lit up the screen. Douglas Morgan. We'd like to talk. No pressure. When you're ready. She didn't open it. She didn't delete it either. Just let it sit there. Unanswered. In the background, a local real estate agent finished a call and stepped into the room, clipboard in hand. You were right to finalize when you did, he said. Apparently, the Morgans tried to inquire about the lot 2 doors down last month. Said they were looking to expand. Camille raised an eyebrow. I told them it was under contract, with conditions they wouldn't meet. Camille didn't reply, just nodded. That evening, the dining table was set for 3. Homemade pasta, candles, Ella's favorite red. Jasmine had flown up for the weekend and brought flowers from the Boston market. They laughed about nothing in particular, debated the best beach trail, played a game of worst client ever from Jasmine's agency archives. It wasn't glamorous. It was something better, real. As the sky deepened to cobalt and the final glass was poured, Camille excused herself and wandered to the bay window. She stood quietly, looking toward the old house next door. The Morgans were throwing something. A backyard party, maybe. Strings of lights blinked in the dusk. Laughter carried faintly across the fence. Zeus barked once. Someone clapped. But Camille felt nothing. No ache. No longing, just distance, like watching a scene from a story she no longer starred in. A rustle. She turned toward the side gate, just past the rosemary bushes. There was no knock, only the soft sound of something slipping through the metal. She opened the gate just enough to retrieve a card left on the ground. Plain white. Just one sentence. Handwritten. From Brielle. If you ever want to talk. Camille read it twice, then tucked it inside the notebook that lived by the entry table. She didn't text back. She walked through the house one last time that night, switching off lights, closing windows, listening to the creak of hardwood settling into night. Then she locked the villa behind her and walked barefoot down the path toward the beach where the sky kissed the waves and the horizon promised everything still unwritten. She was once the forgotten daughter, left behind in milestones, hospital beds, and even her own family photo. But when silence became her strength, she built a life so whole it needed no witnesses. Justice doesn't always arrive in confrontation. Sometimes it comes in quiet ownership, in property lines that don't bend, and doors that no longer open to the unworthy. No wall of favoritism can stand forever against the quiet resolve of someone who knows their worth.